Hello everyone and welcome back to another roundup. So, in today's news, we've got the Epic versus Apple saga marching onwards in a way that's continuing to be spicy because Epic are getting quite a lot of backlash now, as are Apple, and Apple also might have dealt a pretty significant blow to the upper hand that Epic may have believed they had, effectively kind of giving Epic to the end of the month to apologize, to change their stuff, or, to just risk losing access to all iOS and macOS development tools. Now, this is all, of course, going on while there's criticism of Epic weaponizing their younger, more impressionable audience, and just opinions are getting more spicy and more divided. Also, the Aussies are fighting predatory game monetization through box labeling, not in a particularly exciting way, and we've got a whole bunch of other news. We've got Rocksteady, and there's just a whole bunch today. Of course, the thing we're trying to drive right now is subscribers, trying to get this channel up to 250k, and believe me, every time I mention this, the sub number literally just goes up. It went from being flatlined before we mentioned it to the day we started mentioning it in videos going boop. So you want to help the cause, help all this daily gaming news content, then hit that sub button. Okay, let's get into the stories, and we're going to kick it off with the Apple situation with Epic. And man, this is a bit of a crazy one. So, of course, Apple have fought back, as one could expect, in their ongoing dispute with Epic. There's a new court filing from Epic Games that has revealed that Apple are actually threatening them to cut them off from iOS and macOS development tools. Now, basically, in terminating Epic from the Apple Developer Program, Apple would also block all products from being distributed by the App Store, all Epic products, and this includes, tools necessary for offering the Unreal Engine. That's pretty wild. Apple contends that Epic Games have violated the development program license agreement when they introduced direct payment into Fortnite so that basically Epic's customers could circumvent the App Store fee. Now, of course, Apple are contending that. It's also literally true. Epic did violate those rules. They did so on purpose to bait Apple into kicking them off the store so they could launch their big anti-Apple and such sort of marketing campaign. And I do say marketing campaign because the thing even has a sort of hype trailer to it, which is a bit wild when you think about it. Now, overall, Apple have they've said this, and they have given Epic until August 28th to address their violations or just have their developer tool access revoked. Now, Epic, meanwhile, argue that Apple's move is a retaliatory one that will reverberate well beyond video games to any field where developers find themselves using the Unreal Engine. Now, realistically speaking here, I mean, it's just Apple not making an exception because Epic did violate their rules on purpose. Look, I actually do agree with a lot of Epic's criticisms of the App Store, but when Epic basically just goad Apple into getting hit and then Epic tries to play the victim, yeah, I don't really like that. That does seem like a pretty conscious manipulation of people who are not going to be read up on the issue or really understand the principles of things that are going on here. Now, moving on, Epic state that Apple's move is an existential threat to the Unreal Engine, and that if it goes ahead, Epic will not be able to develop future versions of the engine for iOS and macOS, which of course would really cause a lot of harm throughout the industry. Now, Epic are also seeking to get an injunction to prevent Apple from blocking access, which, Epic argue that blocked access would cause quintessential irreparable harm, which is quite a bit. Now, while Epic have been very grandly dramatic in their statements, Apple have played it a lot more cooler, because in a statement they said to Polygon, an Apple spokesperson just highlighted that Epic is one of the most successful developers on the App Store, that they operate a multi-billion-dollar business there for iOS customers, that it reaches millions of them across the world, and they argue that the problem is entirely of Epic's own creation, and that it could easily be remedied if they simply reverted the direct payment changes that constituted the original guideline violation. And Apple emphasizes that they will not make an exception for Epic because of their business interests, and that their business interests don't take precedent over protecting App Store customers. Now, the bit on protecting App Store customers is where I take a bit of issue there, because Apple are going to say you've got to use Apple's payment method because that's the safe one. They don't want third-party payment providers coming in that could be less safe, and a bit of that is true. But I would say that for the most part, if it was purely just protecting App Store customers and it was purely just a payment processing thing, it wouldn't be a 30% fee. Really, what that 30% fee is it's not really payment processing. It's a bit of that, yes, but really it's just access to a platform that Apple have built that you can make money upon, and Apple obviously want a cut of that. So it's going to be interesting to see where this story actually goes. I think Epic, they obviously did the whole thing to bait Apple into removing Fortnite so they could launch their lawsuit and their free Fortnite campaign, the 1984 advert, but Apple threatening to axe Epic's access to the whole developer network, that could be a bit of a surprise to Epic. Now, Epic's lawsuit and the little Fortnite video, maybe they just ended up forcing a stronger reaction from Apple than they perhaps expected, but regardless, Epic have got until August 28th to respond, and in the meantime, I think Apple are pretty willing to just let the whole thing burn down. At the end of the day, Apple can, even if people are just characterizing this as, oh, it's a $1 billion company fighting a $1 trillion company. Ultimately, Apple's a $1 trillion company. They can take the hit. And I think the situation here is an interesting one. Criticism is really mounting here. There's a lot of things like just Epic, I think quite transparently weaponizing their younger, more impressionable audience. I think that is going on, and it's in a way that things like this that are based on principles and how things are set up and antitrust, they should be boring, right? They shouldn't be turned into these big marketing campaigns because they actually, they need to be fact-based. They need to be, honestly, just boring things that most people wouldn't be that interested in, which you could argue is a part of the problem, because if people are interested in something, then no change is going to happen, even if it should sort of happen. So this is just thing where Tim Sweeney of course, of Epic is kind of playing this man of the people sort of thing. And it's quite strange because he does all of that, and I actually agree with a lot of what he says in Twitter. And in principle, I actually do agree with Epic on so many things. But, Tim, he's a man of the people, but he still does exclusivity that hurts the customer in the short term. Of course, he's doing that for the greater good. So there's a lower, the lower rev share and all of that, which ultimately is good for consumers because it makes game development a more efficient market. Then, he's getting angry at one example is at ad space on the App Store. He gets angry at how that's used, while Epic at the same time is advertising against the keyword Unity engine. And it's just that thing where I think Epic, once they think they are right about something, they just have the balls to be extremely aggressive in that. Now, that's then what I would say, is that needed? Or are Epic just becoming the patron saint of poisoned wells? Because I want smaller middleman taxes from digital stores like Epic and Steam. I want those to be smaller. It makes the market more efficient. It's good for indie development. It's just good for development in general. It means more of the money is being kicked back to the people who actually made the thing that's produced the value. And I don't think 30% is fair for a store like Steam. I really don't. Yet, Epic, well, they made the good thing a more efficient market, a more equitable, revenue share. They made that feel so bad to customers that they damaged the core issue. I mean, certainly, I'll say this. I would be more happy to pay Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, or Apple something closer to 30% than I would the likes of Steam and Epic, because at the end of the day, they built the hardware. They built the platform. They sort of did it from scratch and created the market. And I guess a bit, too, with Google, because, of course, while they don't make the hardware, they do, of course, make the operating system. The whole thing's food for thought, though. But yes, I think the thing that I'm left with is Epic can be right, but then I guess they can kind of be dickheads about being right. And they can do that to the point where I would wonder, would they be damaging the cause they're trying to further? Next, a quick trip down under, because the Australian Ratings Board has actually ruled that any games that have got in-game purchases must communicate that on the cover art using words from their classification site. It's pretty good. It was noted by a Reddit user who has also compiled details on a range of upcoming games. Now, this change has been put in place since May, but it comes into effect this September. It's nice to see more of this happening across the industry, and it's welcome, but it's not precise enough because it doesn't differentiate between, say, FIFA Ultimate Team packs, so random elements, and regular game DLC, which is quite a bit of suck, but overall, good to see it happening. I mean, that said, it's also Australia. They're a little bit weird over there with how they treat video games. Just look at the whole saga of trying to make an 18 rated game over there, and, publish, and it's all just a little bit cursed. But still, it is good to see things like that, like this happen. The more information consumers have, especially the likes of parents, that's written in a way that parents can actually understand, and maybe causes the parents to have a little bit of a think about what they're purchasing for their kid, certainly the better. Then next up, we've got the Rocksteady situation, which has actually changed a bit since the first recording of this video, and it's a bit wild. So, okay, what happened is Rocksteady were accused of having failed to have acted on claims of harassment and abuse. Now, this was reported by The Guardian. So what happened is that article came out and it said that in November 2018, 10 of the studio's 16 female employees signed a letter to management. And since then, it's claimed that the extent of the studio's actions on it has just been a training seminar, and because of that, multiple of the signatories of the letter have actually left the company in protest of things. Now, the thing that gets a bit wild is that the claims of this letter, well, these claims, basically, that were published in The Guardian, have since been disputed by a letter from the same signatories. So it is really strange. So, okay, this week, one of the letter's signatories shared the letter with The Guardian. Now, Rocksteady replied saying that they're having an all-hands meeting to address it. And what happened is that Kim McCaskill, who is an ex-Rocksteady writer, posted a video explaining that she wrote the letter after speaking to each woman in the company. Now, at the time, she said that HR and management tried to stop her, and when she would not stop, they suddenly couldn't find the money to pay her. And they obviously then replaced her immediately once she was out of the company. Now, she says that nothing of note has changed since 2018, and that the women there are still suffering under individuals who are being protected by the company, including a director. And that's where we thought the story ended, at least in the current wave of it, but that's not the case. Rockstar received a unsolicited letter, at least they claim that, while they were working on their official response to this. Now, 8 of the 10 signatories from the original letter are still at Rocksteady, and this new letter is from 7 of them. Now, it claims that the Guardian article was not representative of the actual events, and that they have been assured that the original matter would be kept private, or had been. Now, this letter said that immediate action was taken at the time, and that continued efforts have been made to involve women, basically, in the studio and to keep an open forum and those things. So basically, right, we've got these conflicting reports from people at the studio and from Kim, who was apparently pushed out in 2019. So either this is a case of majorly crossed wires or someone is not telling the truth, because it seems like people who actually signed on to that letter originally, who seem to have thought the thing would have been a private affair, well, they're now, well, I guess seemingly openly disagreeing with things as are being characterized in the Guardian article. So it's a bit of a messy situation, and with things like this, you know, it's sometimes, right, they can be twisted in a way that's maybe not truthful or misrepresented, and if it does turn out that that has happened, then it's very unfortunate, because when that happens, it invalidates, or, you know, sort of serves to help invalidate or create a perception where a lot of real claims won't be taken seriously. So, yeah, for this, there's no firm way we can actually sort of decide on what's actually happened here. We just need to wait for more information. So, a messy as hell situation, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Next, though, we do have excellent news, because Sucker Punch have made a surprise announcement that Ghost of Tsushima will be getting a multiplayer mode, and one that actually seems to be well considered. So, comes out later this year, and it's called Legends. It's going to be a free update for owners of the base game. Now, it's a new mode that basically is a more haunting and fantastical setting where 2 to 4 players take control of 4 character classes against enemies that are inspired by Japanese mythology and folklore. And there you go. That's what it is. It's free. That's pretty hard to argue against. And this is just such a great way to double down how well that game is done. And also, it does make me think, PS5 multiplayer Sony games. This is an interesting angle, because by the time The Last of Us Part 2's multiplayer comes out, well, I imagine that'll be like after the PS5. And then we've got this, which, again, is a situation where, if, you know, it's just another thing that you could do in a PS5. So I've got to wonder if one of Sony's plans here is to actually extend the, like, sort of long-tail performance of their first parties by having the multiplayer come out after the fact. Certainly, I think it's a plan that'll work well for them, because, I mean, The Last of Us Part 1's multiplayer was actually pretty great, and people certainly are excited for this. And next up, apparently in our long line of sort of store-related violation news, apparently, Valve are a bit tired of Steam hosting marketing materials for other platforms and devs skirting content restrictions, so because of that, they've made changes to their terms of service. Basically, a Steamworks FAQ about community hubs now states that developers may only use their game's Steam page and any Steam-driven communications to, quote, promote the Steam version and its availability via Steam and not other distribution outlets. So according to Valve, this has basically always been their policy, and that this change is a reminder of existing rules for a small number of developers who are exploring the boundaries. Basically, the situation here is that the Community Hub is being used as a general game hub instead of one for Steam, like the Steam-specific sort of release of a game. And this has resulted in community forums talking about Epic Store exclusives, because there's no forums like on Epic, so like there's that happening. There's also situations where people are trying to, say promote external downloads of games, be it on a developer's website, on itch, on Epic, and that basically just violates Steam's content policies. And one of the reasons why developers would do that is, of course, to get around the 30% cut that Steam has. Also, this targets a fun thing done in the visual novel and VR space where you could get your game, it could be a little bit salacious, but the clothes are still on. But if you want that, well, I just hit my microphone, nice. If you want that 18 plus version complete with, I meant to say version? Oh dear. Is that cancel? Who knows? Honestly, it's just so flagrant that I love it as a business model, even though it is a bit sketch, where basically, you got your visual novel, but you're playing it, right? And you're thinking, oh no, both my hands are on the keyboard and there's no squidgy bits in the screen. What's going on? This is not the visual novel experience that I wanted from Steam. Or you're playing your VR game and you're like, wow, where's the business? Well, actually, there's a business model. I'm hamming it up a bit, but there is a business model that's actually very, very successful where, what happens is there's these visual novels and VR games where you can download the not safe for work patch. Now, this can work in a few different ways. It can be that, like, there's a game, it's free in Steam, but the not safe for work patch is pretty expensive and comes on another website, and then, you sort of manually install it. That's one way of doing it. Another one is that the game, like, costs money in Steam, and then there's a free not safe for work patch, or just a hybrid of both. But yes, it's something that's actually quite successfully done. You don't hear about it that much because it's a niche audience. I think it's a large enough niche audience that you don't hear much about, but it's certainly one that converts very well in terms of money, because I do think whenever people want to enjoy such materials, they're not always in the most value conscious mode in terms of where their money goes. So there you go. It's one of the funnier business practices out there, and it's now one that I think you probably can still do in Steam, but you can't just promote it on Steam. So kind of spicy. Next up with today's news, though, we do have a massive delay. Deathloop, previously slated for December 2020, is now Q2 2021. So that is quite the update. And Arcane have basically just said this is down to realistic development and keeping staff conditions being reasonable. Now, normally when we hear that, we basically just think, right, cool. I guess that's another 6 months of crunch for those staff. Is this actually being done in a non-crunchy way? Of course, it's hard to tell, but this certainly is a bit of a sting because this was a console PS5 exclusive. So Sony are not going to be particularly pleased about that. But still, Sony could have plenty up their sleeves in the console exclusive department. This is something that you may not have known, but it's not really surprising. So a recent Reset Hour post from Imran Khan suggested, and Imran would be somebody who'd generally be considered to be quite in the know on these things. Basically, he said that there isn't a major third party out there that Sony haven't approached in some way. And Sony allegedly have approached with pretty high numbers that Microsoft were not willing to match. And that, of course, is in, securing things like exclusives from third parties. Now, things are still pretty hush-hush, but Khan states that we will be seeing a lot more Avenger-style PlayStation advantages and console-exclusive branding in the future, which, as somebody who likes options and likes customers, whatever, and thinks they should be treated well, obviously, paying for exclusives for games that you didn't make, screw you. I dislike that. That's a part of Sony's business model. That sucks. And it does make you wonder if maybe that's why Microsoft have done things like the recent, EA Play rumors, just things like that, just trying to meet Sony's exclusives by throwing value at people, because maybe Microsoft have realized they actually can't compete in sort of along the same lines as what Sony want to do. And then finally, to round it off, a bit of Facebook suck, because if you're like me, maybe you picked up an Oculus Quest for some lower budget but super solid and very usable VR. I mean, seriously, the Oculus Quest it's an incredible piece of kit. I love mine. I use it almost every day, especially for playing Beat Saber. It is great. Now, the idea of Oculus being owned by Facebook, was concerning, always. It didn't really impact most people's purchases, though, because they did seem largely separate on the user end. But now Oculus are phasing out Oculus accounts, and in January of 2023, you will need to merge your Oculus account with a Facebook account before being allowed to log in. Screw that. Now, from this October, any new users will have to sign in using a Facebook account instead of an Oculus one. And yes, may have took them a while, but Facebook are pulling the trigger on getting their Oculus users into the big data funnel. Might not be worth it, though. I mean, VR users are generally a bit more tech savvy, and I think they are just the type of people who have an absolute, like me, aversion to Facebook as a business. So, there you go. That's the news. You've just had 20 minutes of news. Congratulations, you've made it through it. Yeah, I mean, it's gaming news. Some of it's good. Some of it actually was good today. That was nice. But equally, lots of dramatic stuff. Of course, as always, do hit that sub button. Really does help us out. And also, I think we're doing 2 videos in the channel today. Perhaps. I believe we're doing 2 in the channel today. There will definitely be one tomorrow. So there are lots of reasons to sub. And we are trying our darndest to make as much content as we can for you. And also, we are doing some more long-term work to try to see how we could just generally do better. So, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.